Tonight, breaking news, a blinding dust storm triggering a deadly pileup in Illinois. At least 6 people killed, more than 30 injured, as the severe dust storm created near zero visibility on the road. A 30-mile stretch of the highway shut down. This as residents in Virginia and Florida pick up the pieces after a pair of violent tornadoes, and residents along the swollen Mississippi are forced to navigate flooded streets by boat. We'll have full team coverage of the severe spring weather. Also tonight, an urgent manhunt underway in Texas after police say a gunman shot 5 of his neighbors, quote, execution style, after he was asked to stop firing his AR-15 in his front yard. The suspect on the run now for 3 days. His youngest victim, just 9 years old, dying while trying to protect his mother. The emotional message from his father tonight, as his family's killer remains at large. J.P. Morgan Chase agreeing to buy First Republic Bank after the second largest bank collapse in U.S. history. What it means for customers and their money, and the likelihood that other banks could also go under. Overseas, Russia launching a new assault on civilian targets. Ukraine's air defense intercepting the bulk of those missiles, but several getting through, injuring dozens. Ukraine now preparing to launch its own offensive. Elson Barber is on the ground in the war zone again tonight. Plus, a mom influencer accused of staging a kidnapping attempt. She had claimed the couple had tried to take her son from a store in California. The charges and potential jail time she's now facing. And time is running out in Hollywood. TV writers set to go on strike unless a deal can be reached by midnight. What they're asking for and how soon a strike could affect your favorite shows. Top Story starts right now. Good evening. I'm Gabe Gutierrez in for Tom Llamas. We begin Top Story tonight with that late breaking news. Truly apocalyptic looking images coming in from Illinois. A severe dust storm just south of Springfield, triggering a massive, deadly pileup. At least 6 people killed and more than 30 people injured as high winds kicked up the dust from nearby farms and fields. Emergency crews racing to the scene, but battling near zero visibility themselves. A 30-mile stretch of highway shut down in both directions as first responders raced to help the injured. This as parts of the Mississippi River are cresting, flooding communities across the Midwest. Jesse Kirch leads us off with the late-breaking details.
Tonight, this highway dust storm turning deadly in Illinois. State police say dozens of vehicles crashed along a major highway south of the state capital this morning.
The cause of the crash is due to excessive winds blowing dirt from farm fields across the highway, leading to zero visibility.
At least 6 people killed, with over 30 taken to the hospital and 2 semi-trailers catching fire, according to officials.
Trying to get to the victims in a rapid manner. We had, multiple vehicles involved. Some were on fire, so we had vehicle fires to extinguish. We had to search every vehicle, whether they were involved in the accident or just pulled over.
That brutal weather, roughly a 3-hour drive south of Davenport, Iowa, in a region where some streets are better suited for boats than cars. In Buffalo, Iowa, Janine Buckley says thanks to those sandbags, inside, her house is dry.
You still have power, heat, everything. If you were inside, you'd have no idea.
Yeah, no. If I had the curtains closed, I'd never know.
Others around the city of Davenport are not so lucky. As the Midwest waits to dry out, parts of the southeast are cleaning up from tornadoes. The National Weather Service says a twister with roughly 145-mile-per-hour winds ripped through Virginia Beach Sunday after a weaker tornado hit near Palm Beach, Florida Saturday, tossing around cars.
It's loud, it's scary, and lightning everywhere.
Meanwhile, Davenport waiting for word the Mississippi is done rising for now, a familiar problem that some feel is a fair price for life on the river.
And Jesse Kirch joins us now live from Davenport, Iowa. Jesse, first I want to go back to that horrible that car pileup from that dust storm in Illinois. What can you tell us about those injuries?
Gabe, officials are telling us that there are both minor and life-threatening injuries, and at least one of the people who was hurt is a child as young as 2 years old, Gabe.
And Jesse, those pictures are just incredible. And I want to go back to that live picture right behind you. When do we expect those floodwaters to recede?
Yeah, you can see there's still plenty of water downtown tonight. We are expecting the water level to start dropping slowly tomorrow, but parts of the city, Gabe, will still be flooded into next week. Gabe?
Jesse Kirch live for us in Iowa. Jesse, thank you. And for more on the forecast, let's get right to Bill Cairns. Bill, what's the latest on this track?
Well, we're continuing to watch these heavy rain in areas in some spots, especially the Ohio Valley. But the winds have been the biggest issue, especially in areas where we saw that fire and that horrific accident. We still have these wind gusts that are 32 in Green Bay. St. Louis is at 36. But as we focus in, right when we saw, I've never seen an accident like this because of dust from farm equipment. They were literally tilling the fields and the soil was flying in the wind. We've had, horrific accidents from ice and snow in Arizona from these big haboobs and big dust storms, but this was a very unique situation. Illinois is not even in a drought. I mean, Illinois had rain 3 days ago. It just happened to be exactly when the farmers were out there tilling their fields, and just a horrific accident, about as bad as it gets. So the temperatures have been very chilly in the northern peninsula. We have had significant snow in upper Michigan. Ironwood has 14 inches of snow on the ground. I mean, here we are, May 1st. So the weather as we go into your Tuesday, we will be seeing tomorrow still some showers. There is some snow on the map. If you're in western New York, western PA, at any elevations, you may see some snowflakes. But the only areas that will get additional accumulations will be the mountains of West Virginia and also in the upper peninsula. And then we'll be watching just some nasty showers and cold, raw conditions on Wednesday going through areas of New England. Finally, by Thursday, this mess clears out. So additional snowfall, maybe even enough for power outages in northern portions of Michigan. Also, we'll get that snow in West Virginia. And as far as the Mississippi River goes, the river levels will slowly be coming down after we get our crest, which is happening now along the Iowa-Illinois border.
A lot to keep track of, Bill. Thank you. We move on now to our other major headline tonight. A killer on the loose after going on a horrific shooting spree inside of his neighbor's home. Police releasing these images of the suspected gunman, 38-year-old Francisco Oropesa, who's been on the run since Friday night. An $80,000 reward now being offered for information about Oropesa, who has a distinct tattoo of a woman wearing a headdress on his left arm. Police say the Mexican national went on a deadly rampage after a neighbor asked him to stop firing his AR-15 on his front lawn. In all, 5 people killed. These are their names and faces. The youngest victim, just 9 years old. His father telling NBC News he died trying to protect his mother. The grief this community is feeling, overshadowed only by the urgent efforts to bring the suspected killer to justice. NBC's Priscilla Thompson is in Cleveland, Texas tonight with more.
Hundreds of law enforcement personnel scouring the greater Houston area, chasing down tips, looking for the man wanted for 5 murders.
We're asking everyone for your help so we can bring this suspect, or this monster, I will call him, to justice.
An $80,000 reward has been issued for information leading to an arrest. The sheriff says 38-year-old Francisco Oropesa barged into a neighbor's home late Friday night and opened fire execution style with an AR-15 rifle after he was asked to stop shooting the gun on his front lawn. 5 people were killed, all Honduran nationals, authorities say, the youngest just 9 years old. Wilson Garcia escaped the carnage, but hours later returned to his home, where his wife and young son were murdered. Telling NBC News his son was killed trying to protect his mom, that when he saw her lying on the floor, he ran to her and was shot dead. 3 other children were also found at the scene, covered in blood, but uninjured, shielded, authorities say, by 2 of the women who died. Garcia says he had called police that night to report his neighbor was being threatening, but says it took 20 minutes for help to arrive.
We got a call about 11:31 p.m., and then within a few seconds thereafter, we received other 911 calls of shooting going on. There's bodies, and so we picked our priority up.
New details are emerging about the suspect, including, according to federal officials, that the Mexican national had been deported 4 times.
Anyone who has the courage to kill someone, especially kids, will kill again. I think that's a fear. It's a real fear.
Tonight, a community on edge with a killer on the loose.
Just heartbreaking. Priscilla Thompson joins us now from Cleveland, Texas. And Priscilla, what is the latest authorities know about the suspect's location?
Yeah, Gabe, authorities responded to several potential sightings today, but the suspect remains at large. They've been putting signs like this up all around town, hoping that a tip could lead to a break in the case. Gabe?
And Priscilla, what more are we learning tonight about the victims and survivors of this mass shooting?
Yeah. Well, you saw I spoke to Wilson Garcia, the father of that 9-year-old, and he described his son Daniel as someone who loved animals. He would rush home from school to play with a horse and a dog, and described him as someone who was nurturing and protective. And that is what we're hearing about some of the other victims today, too, including Deanna Alvarado and Julissa Rivera, those 2 women who died covering the children who were able to survive uninjured as a result of their selfless act. Gabe?
Priscilla, so good to see their pictures and keep the focus on those victims. Priscilla Thompson, live for us in Texas. Priscilla, thank you. And for more on this urgent manhunt, let's bring in Jim Cavanaugh, former ATF special agent in charge and a law enforcement analyst for NBC News. Jim, you know, how many times have we spoken after these mass shootings? You know, just bring us behind the scenes here, Jim. There are hundreds of law enforcement personnel right now working together, and just, you know, tell us what's going on behind the scenes here.
Well, they got a joint operations command post set up down there. They got a couple of hundred federal, state, county, city officers scouring the region. You know, normally you'd go right after a fugitive tracking his cell phone, but this guy probably left the phone in his house, because officers found that when they went into search. They found some other guns, Gabe, and a cell phone. So he might not have taken his cell phone, which makes him a lot harder to track. He's very desperate now, and he's likely to kill to further his escape. I mean, he has 5 murders on his hands, and they were all execution style, shot in the head, and including the 8-year-old boy and an 18-year-old young man. So. And this guy's a brutal killer, likely will do anything to escape. And as the reporter noted, he's been deported 4 times, so he crosses the border easily, illegally. Federal law would prohibit him from having a gun. He can't legally possess a gun. So the ATF agents there will be tracing that gun and trying to find out how did he acquire it. Of course, Texas is awash in guns, and it's not hard to get one, but he would not be allowed to possess it at any rate. And he likely has a handgun.
Yeah, and Jim, you mentioned, you know, that he has been deported before, according to officials. What's the likelihood that he could potentially be south of the border already?
Yeah, I think it's very likely. I would say he probably has a handgun, since he had the AR rifle and there was other guns in his house. And when he fled, he might have taken a handgun with him. That's his ticket for a carjacking, which he would not shy away from after murdering 5 people, and he was in his flight mode. He wanted to escape. He carjacks somebody, you know, he drops them in a ditch and he flees to Mexico, or even forces them to drive him to Mexico, where he clearly can operate down there. He's a Mexican national, and he traverses the border. So law enforcement commanders have to be looking for anyone in the area who turns up missing, who didn't report home, who didn't show up for work, and in the last day or two or the next day or two, if somebody's missing like that. The other scenario is he could certainly be in someone's house, holding them hostage and trying to lay low, maybe even have murdered them trying to lay low, planning to steal their vehicle. He could have committed suicide. It's possible. I don't see he's a likely candidate for that. He's been arrested many times, so I think he probably has more flight in him than just some of these mass killers we see that burn up and spin out after they murder. So he's probably in that flight mode.
There are so many unanswered questions at this point. How surprised were you over the weekend that authorities came out and said they didn't have any leads here? So, you know, they were very forthcoming in that. Was that unusual? Does that, you know, are they just desperate for the public's help in this one? They wanted to really make it seem that this was quite urgent?
Well, I think it's a good thing to do, be straightforward with the public when you really need their help. It's the whole community there, Gabe, everybody and the police against this killer, and you want to leverage that the best you can. And the best way to do that is to be frank with everybody. Here's this picture. We don't have any leads. Please help us. Please call us. There's a reward of $80,000. So I give him credit for being frank. You know, initially they had put up the wrong photo of a wrong suspect. But that was quickly corrected, and you know, it's understandable in a big case with the fog of war and all the information swirling around. They corrected it immediately. They have the correct photo out. They know who they want. They just got to get a break. But this guy's savvy enough not to bring his phone. He's desperate enough to kill to get away. He's probably got a gun. It's a very dangerous situation in the region. If he shows up in Mexico, you know, we're going to have to enlist the help of the Mexican federales to catch him. Of course, we have FBI, ATF, DEA agents all at the Mexican consulates down there, and they interact with Mexican police all the time. There's very good communications, as does Customs and Border Protection and ICE. So we have lots of contacts down there. I don't think he'll get away. He's going to get caught. The question is, can we catch the guy before he kills again or kills somebody in furtherance of his escape? That's really the pressure on the commanders to try to catch him before he kills again.
Jim Cavanaugh, thank you. Turning now to some other breaking news we're following tonight. The U.S. military says it is tracking a mysterious balloon that flew over U.S. soil, but it's not clear yet what it is or who it belongs to. Courtney Cubey joins us now from the Pentagon to break this all down for us. So, Courtney, what can you tell us so far about this mystery balloon again?
Yeah, it is a mystery. So it's been flying at about 36,000 feet. The U.S. military has been tracking it for several days now. It did fly over at least part of Hawaii. It made its way east, and it's now somewhere between Hawaii and Mexico, according to 3 U.S. officials. Now, the officials said that it did not fly over any sensitive U.S. military sites while in Hawaii. And at this point, despite the fact it's flying at 36,000 feet, which is relatively common for civilian aviation, the U.S. assesses that it is not a threat to civilian aviation. Now, one big difference between this and the Chinese surveillance balloon that we all spoke about so much several months ago is this one does not appear to have any propulsion. It doesn't appear to have a maneuverability. In other words, it's just drifting with the winds as opposed to being flown like that balloon was several months ago. It also appears to be much smaller. It does, however, have some sort of a payload. But as you said, Gabe, it's really not clear who owns this or what it is doing up there.
So, Courtney, this could be a surveillance balloon. You said it doesn't really represent a security concern, but how do we know?
That's according to the U.S. military. They're saying as of now, they don't see that it's a security concern. Now, it's not communicating any signal, so it's not sending anything out. And it does not appear to be collecting either, according to these officials. But the reality is, Gabe, they're telling us they don't believe it's a Chinese surveillance balloon without really giving us any indication of why that is. Now, we can look back to what we saw happen with the Chinese surveillance balloon and a couple other balloons in the immediate aftermath. The U.S. military put up aircraft, U-2s, spy planes to get close to some of these other balloons, these mysterious balloons, and try to figure out what they were. Most likely, they were able, in this case, to figure out a little bit more about this balloon than what they're actually telling us. But all they're saying is that it's not another Chinese spy balloon, but they aren't saying exactly its point of origin, where it came from, or where it may be going. Now, I will say, despite the fact they're saying it's not any kind of a threat to national security, to people on the ground, or even to civilian aviation, the officials said they still do maintain the possibility to shoot it down if it nears land.
Courtney Cubey, thank you. Turning now to New York, where E. Jean Carroll, the writer accusing Donald Trump of rape and defamation, faced tough questioning today by Trump's lawyer. Senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett has the latest.
Back on the stand, E. Jean Carroll facing a second day of intense cross-examination. Joe Tacopina, an attorney for the former president, doubling down on the defense theory that Carroll made up her sexual assault accusation against Mr. Trump to gain notoriety. Playing this old interview on CNN for the jury, where she describes bumping into Mr. Trump at Bergdorf Goodman and helping him pick out a gift.
He was going to get some lingerie. And I am just like, oh, well, I can dine out forever on this story.
Today, Carol told the jury it was such a New York story and such a happy story. And then, of course, it turned tragic. She says the former president raped her in the dressing room, an allegation the defense again tried to undermine Monday by saying she never called the police, despite having told others in her advice column to do so. Carol explaining in court, "I'm a member of the silent generation. Women like me were taught and trained to keep our chins up and to not complain." Tacopina also confronting Carol with old posts on Facebook years after she says she was assaulted, where she calls herself a, quote, massive fan of Mr. Trump's TV show, The Apprentice. But Carol told the jury she also made several jokes about him. Today, Mr. Trump visited Scotland. It appears unlikely he'll show up at trial.
And it doesn't look like it at this point. Laura Jarrett joins us now. And Laura, Donald Trump's legal team made a motion this morning to declare a mistrial. What happened?
That's right, Gabe. They're trying to get this case thrown out, saying basically that the judge has ruled against them on a number of evidentiary issues and has been slanted in favor of Ms. Carroll. They likely knew that this motion wouldn't win. The judge swiftly denied it, but they're likely laying the groundwork for a potential appeal down the line.
And Laura, is Carroll done testifying, and what can we expect next in this case?
She's all done with cross-examination and redirect by her own attorneys. They tried to clean up a couple issues there at the end of the day. Now, at this point, we're likely to hear from the two women that she told about this alleged assault contemporaneously back in the mid-90s. At some point this week, we will hear from those two women.
And Laura, you said at the end of your report there that we don't expect Trump to be in court. So is there any reason that the judge would require him to be there?
No, he doesn't have to come, but the jury could punish him for it, Gabe. He's obviously in Scotland today. He's been making a number of different campaign-related trips. And so in closing arguments, I expect to hear Ms. Carroll's attorneys point out that he's been traveling all over the world, but he hasn't bothered to show up in this courtroom in Manhattan, Gabe.
Laura Jarrett, thank you. Now to Money Talks, what consumers and investors need to know from the business world and beyond. U.S. regulators seizing First Republic Bank today and announcing J.P. Chase will purchase all of the bank's assets and deposits. Chase stepping in after First Republic lost 40% of its deposits in the first quarter of this year. It's the third major bank failure of 2023 and the second largest in U.S. history. NBC News business and data reporter Brian Chung joins us now. And Brian, the FDIC took over and announced this acquisition simultaneously. So explain what happened here.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting situation where the government didn't use the exact same playbook with the two bank failures that we had about 2 months ago. You recall Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. They had to wait many days to find a buyer after ultimately closing its doors. In this case, they announced prior to market open today that they were going to close the bank. The FDIC stepped in to basically shutter the San Francisco-based firm, but then simultaneously that the largest bank in this country, J.P. Chase, will be buying up those assets almost immediately from the FDIC. So it was essentially a deal to try to get the private sector and the government in the same room over the weekend. They took bids from not just J.P. Chase, but other banks as well, all to make sure that First Republic depositors and customers were able to access their accounts under a different name today. Gabe, that name is now Chase Bank.
It was a remarkable series of events overnight. And Brian, U.S. bank customers are insured for up to $250,000 with the FDIC. But First Republic courted bigger customers who were at risk of losing their money. But in this case, and for Silicon Valley Bank as well, the FDIC reimbursed depositors in full. So is that going to become the norm when banks fail going forward?
Yeah, and there is the open question of, well, should the government just remove the $250,000 per depositor cap when it comes to the insurance that you have in the worst case scenario for your bank? Because as you'll recall, and as you just pointed out, Gabe, the government essentially came in after the Silicon Valley Bank and the Signature Bank failures and said, you know what, we're going to guarantee that all the deposits, even beyond that limit, are going to be safe until they found another buyer, which they did in both of those instances. With the First Republic situation, it is a little bit different because the government did technically come in to take control of the bank, but they never had a full business day where they operated the bank, which means that ultimately J.P. Chase was able to take on those assets, so the government never had to guarantee beyond that limit, at least the deposits at First Republic, because the money, in theory, is safe at Chase now. So again, though, it does raise the question of, in the future, if they can't find a buyer, it's not necessarily even the case that in First Republic it was going to be that easy. The FDIC actually had to sweeten the deal. Maybe there is the concern that the $250,000 limit could be in question in the future as well.
And Brian, as you mentioned, the Federal Reserve's rate hikes kicked off some of the problems for Silicon Valley Bank. So the Fed will announce its latest decision on interest rates this week, right?
That's expected on Wednesday. That's right, Gabe. And, you know, the interesting thing here when it comes to interest rates is that one of the factors that led to Silicon Valley Bank's collapse, not all of it, because mismanagement was very much a big part of it, too. But higher interest rates did squeeze the bank in terms of its profitability and really blew up a portfolio that they had that made bets on where longer-term interest rates would go. Now, not a lot of other banks had bets that substantially large, but for the Federal Reserve, if you're trying to lower inflation, which is the goal of higher interest rates, well, how do you do that without making another bank potentially explode? That's the tightrope that the Federal Reserve is going to have to walk when it goes into its widely expected meeting on Wednesday, where the expectation is that they'll continue to raise interest rates, but by 0.25%.
Brian Chung, thank you. Moving overseas now, Ukrainian armed forces say they intercepted most of the missiles fired by Russia early this morning, but some still hit eastern Ukraine, the second major attack in just 3 days. Ellison Barber is there with the latest on the damage.
This video shows Ukraine's air defenses hard at work, intercepting a wave of Russian missiles early Monday morning. The attack began around 2:30. When they couldn't stop, slammed into the city of Pavlohrad. Local officials say 34 people were injured in the strike, the youngest just 8 years old. It was the second major airstrike in 3 days, and it comes as Ukraine inches closer to launching a highly anticipated counteroffensive. In preparation, Ukraine says they carried out an attack on an oil depot in Russian-occupied Crimea, a small sign of what's to come. This deputy brigade commander saying, the training is ongoing. People are ready to act. They want this. I think that they will be ready to execute any order in the shortest time. Ukrainian forces have spent months preparing for the counteroffensive. But the official start date is a closely guarded secret. In the small city of Uman, explosions gave way to the sound of church bells. A grieving family burying 2 children killed during Friday's attack. 11-year-old Sophia and her 17-year-old brother Kirusha were sleeping when a missile tore through their apartment. Their 6-year-old brother stood next to their caskets, his cheeks damp from the tears.
And Ellison Barber joins us now from Kharkiv. So, Ellison, has Russia taken responsibility for these strikes?
They have. They claim they carried out group missile attacks today and on Friday. They are claiming that they were targeting military-related infrastructure. And the Ministry of Defense for Russia says that all of the targets they meant to hit were hit. But we've seen a lot of residential areas impacted by these strikes in the last 3 days. The UK's Ministry of Defense has said that Russia uses an inefficient targeting process and often focuses on perceived military necessity instead of trying to avoid collateral damage. Gabe, even wars have rules, and according to the Geneva Conventions, the warring parties are responsible for, 1, not targeting civilians, and 2, protecting those who are not fighting. Gabe?
And Allison, we're also getting word that an American was killed in eastern Ukraine. What more can you tell us?
Yes, so he was reportedly killed while fighting in Bakhmut. The State Department confirming today that a U.S. citizen was killed while in Ukraine. They say they are in touch with that individual's family, but are not releasing any other information out of respect for the family. This is the 10th American who has been killed while fighting in Ukraine. Gabe?
Ellison Barber in Ukraine for us. Ellison, thank you to you and your team. Still ahead tonight, the class action lawsuit just filed against Adidas, while the company's shareholders are suing over the sportswear giant's deal with controversial rapper formerly known as Kanye West. Plus, an elite boarding school in New Jersey issuing a rare apology after the tragic death of one of its students, why the school says they should have done more to stop bullying at the hands of his classmates. And a scary scene for a mom and two kids in Arizona. A swarm of bees attacking them during a photo shoot. How that mom sacrificed herself to protect those children. The buzzy story coming up. Stay with us. We're back now with a stunning admission from a prestigious New Jersey prep school after 17-year-old Jack Reed took his own life after excessive bullying. Now, on the anniversary of his death, the Lawrenceville School in New Jersey is acknowledging its own missteps in the events leading up to his suicide. Kristen Dahlgren has more.
In a rare move, an elite boarding school in New Jersey is taking responsibility for missteps leading up to a student's suicide. The Lawrenceville School is one of the most prestigious prep schools in the country, where tuition costs more than $76,000 a year. 17-year-old Jack Reed was a junior there when he took his life last year after being the subject of unfounded rumors and bullying by his classmates. His school holding this memorial service.
Jack's mom wrote to me this morning. She will be with us in spirit.
Now, on the anniversary of Jack's death, the school has reached an agreement with Jack's parents and acknowledged in a statement there were steps that the school should in hindsight have taken but did not, and that bullying and unkind behavior and actions taken or not taken by the school likely contributed to Jack's death.
How rare is it for an organization, a school, to take responsibility for a suicide?
It is extremely rare, which is why this is so important, a leading example for everybody.
Lawrenceville also said it found in an investigation the rumors circulating that Jack had sexually assaulted a girl by kissing her were not true, but never notified him or fellow students of the findings.
So, dear Jack, rest easy.
Lawrenceville is not the only school in the state to be under pressure to take responsibility for bullying that parents say led to devastating consequences. In February, 14-year-old Adriana Kush died by suicide after being beaten by classmates in the halls of New Jersey's Central Regional High School. The incident caught on camera. That incident causing heartbreak and outrage in the community as more accusations of bullying and violent assaults within the school district came forward. School officials did not respond to our request for comment, but the acting superintendent addressed concerns in February.
Data alone, it doesn't indicate that we're a culture of violence. We don't condone that.
Then later that month,
my name is Felicia Loalbo Melendez.
11-year-old Felicia Loalbo Melendez tragically died after an attempted suicide in a middle school bathroom in Mount Holly, New Jersey. Her mother telling NBC Philadelphia that she was bullied by her classmates and reported the concerns to the school.
My daughter was being tortured within the walls of that school.
The superintendent of that district saying the school system cooperated with the prosecutor's office investigation, which determined there was no foul play. A recent study from the CDC showed almost 1 in 10 high school students did not go to school at least once in the last 30 days because they felt unsafe, either at school or on their way.
There are policies and practices and training, but then it is incumbent upon schools to actually practice these suicide prevention practices.
Back at Lawrenceville, the school taking action, saying it would provide anti-bullying education for its staff and hire a dean of campus well-being as a nation grapples with its children's mental health and safety in its schools.
And Kristen Dahlgren joins us now. Kristen, I know this was part of the agreement with Reed's parents. So what else has Lawrenceville said about changing the culture on campus and how it responds to students in crisis?
Right, Gabe. And this agreement is clearly about affecting change. So the school said it will also be making donations to mental health organizations, including the Jack Reed Foundation, which was set up to educate and prevent bullying. On campus, the school will also be working with specialists to identify some of the behaviors that lead to bullying and cyberbullying. And of course, nobody should have to go through that kind of pain. Nobody should have to go through that alone. So anyone out there can reach out for help from the Suicide Prevention Lifeline by dialing 988. Such an important story.
Yeah, indeed, Kristen. Kristen Dahlgren, thank you so much. And when we come back, late breaking news coming out of Oklahoma. police finding 7 bodies at a home south of Tulsa while searching for 2 missing teens. What we're learning at this hour. And a California mom accused of faking her son's attempted kidnapping. The charges she's now facing. That's coming up next. Back now with Top Stories news feed, and we begin with breaking news. A gruesome discovery in Oklahoma as police search for 2 missing teens. The State Bureau of Investigations telling NBC News that 7 bodies were just discovered at a home some 50 miles south of Tulsa late today, as police executed a warrant related to the teens' disappearance. A 16 and 14-year-old were last seen at 1 a.m. Investigators say the 2 were believed to be with a convicted sex offender who was due in court again today. Adidas shareholders are launching a class action lawsuit over the fallout with Ye, the artist formerly known as Kanye West. A lawsuit alleging the sportswear brand intended to deceive investors by failing to disclose ongoing issues with the Grammy winner. A spokesperson for Adidas rejecting the claim, saying the company will vigorously defend itself. Adidas cut ties with the rapper in October following a string of anti-Semitic comments. And an attack in Arizona you will have to see to believe. Yeah, we went there. A family out for a photo shoot in Buckeye Valley when they were surrounded by a swarm of bees. This video showing authorities spraying the bees with foam to calm them down. Good luck. The mom to 2 young children had rushed to put her kids in the car while taking the brunt of the attack herself, getting stung, get this, 75 times. She is expected to be okay. Wow. Turning now to California, where a momfluencer has been convicted of falsely reporting a crime after she accused a couple of trying to kidnap her kids from a parking lot. Her lawyer now denying claims she lied to boost her social media following. NBC's Dana Griffin has the latest.
My children were the targets of attempted kidnap.
31-year-old self-described mom influencer Katie Sorensen is now facing up to 6 months in jail after this social media post that police say was a lie.
I want to share that story with you in an effort to raise awareness as to what signs to look for.
In the December 2020 post on Instagram, Sorensen alleged a couple followed her into this Northern California Michaels in an attempt to kidnap her 2 children.
They walked kind of close behind me. I definitely felt the heebie-jeebies. I didn't feel good, but I thought I was judging a book by its cover.
Also saying they, quote, weren't clean-cut individuals and made comments about her kids' appearance.
They're saying blonde hair, blue eyes.
Sorensen said she did not say anything to them because she was scared.
Paralyzed with fear. And I almost just discredited what was happening.
But in an unexpected twist, police say this actually didn't happen and that Sorensen's story was fabricated. After seeing this surveillance photo of themselves on TV, the accused couple, Sadie and Eddie Martinez, came forward to clear their own names, sharing their story with Inside Edition.
Being labeled a child abductor, it's upsetting, it's heartbreaking, it's life-changing.
The couple, who are Latino, telling the Petaluma Argus-Courier that they were at Michael's to buy Christmas decorations and believe Sorensen's false allegations were racially motivated.
She wanted a stronger following. She was looking for, content for her fame and her income, and at our expense.
Investigators cleared the couple of any wrongdoing.
You think that she lied to try to boost her social media following?
I do not.
Sorensen's attorney telling NBC News his client misrepresented a random set of coincidences.
There's been a perception that this case was about race or racial profiling from the outset. And one of the things that came into evidence was that Ms. Sorensen's reports on December 7th reported a white male, a white female, and a Hispanic male. There really wasn't a racial or a profiling component.
Sorensen was charged with 3 counts of making a false report of a crime, acquitted on 2 of those counts, and found guilty of 1. She was taken into custody on Thursday, her bail set at $100,000 until her sentencing.
And Dana Griffin joins us now. And Dana, we know the max penalty for her is 6 months. So what's next in her sentencing?
So Gabe's sentencing is set for June 14th. Her attorney tells me that she will make a statement and also says that he'll be arguing for alternatives to jail like probation. The defense can also appeal after sentencing, which they will consider, but he said that it's a little premature to make that decision just yet. Now, the Sonoma County DA saying in a statement, the case, quote, illustrates the importance of using social media responsibly. Gabe?
Dana Griffin, thank you. Next to a heartbreaking warning for all parents. Police say the drowning of an NFL linebacker's daughter was a tragic accident, but it's now highlighting a leading cause of death of young children. Tonight, condolences are pouring in for Tampa Bay Buccaneers star linebacker Shaq Barrett and his family.
So close, so close.
After his 2-year-old daughter Aria drowned in the family's swimming pool in Florida over the weekend.
I think Shaq Barrett is the guy who got his hands on it. It is.
Barrett is a 2-time Pro Bowler and Super Bowl champion, winning titles with both the Buccaneers and the Denver Broncos. He married his high school sweetheart, Jordana, in 2012.
You busy right now, girl?
His latest post on Instagram weeks ago celebrated Aria's 2nd birthday. "You made our family complete," he wrote. The Barrett family now getting widespread support on social media from his former teams and teammates, including Tom Brady. It is a heartbreaking reminder that drowning is a leading cause of death among children ages 1 to 4 years old, according to the CDC, an average of 390 deaths a year.
It doesn't make any sense, and it's so preventable.
Kenneth Piles in Tennessee knows the pain all too well. Her 3-year-old son Ryan drowned back in 1999. Since then, she's become a swim instructor, making it her life's mission to teach thousands of kids.
We are really teaching that this is water. If you jump in, there's a consequence, good or bad, and then we teach them how to handle it.
Generally, the CDC recommends parents learn CPR, consider using life jackets, and check the fencing around pools to ensure they're 4 feet high. It's unclear if any of that could have prevented this loss, which police say appears to be purely accidental and tragic. And our thoughts are with the Barrett family tonight. Now to Top Stories Global Watch, and we begin in Mexico with the latest on the deadly fire that killed 40 people at a migrant detention center in March. A judge ordering the immigration agency's top national official, Francisco Garduño, to stand trial on charges that he failed in his duty to protect those in his custody during the fire. But the judge denying the prosecution's request to remove him from his position. Garduño telling reporters, quote, "I will keep working until ordered otherwise," as he left court. And in Paris, a high-end jewelry store was robbed in broad daylight. Video capturing the moment several armed individuals carried out a robbery at a flagship Bulgari store in central Paris. An armed man appearing to shoo away witnesses before the group raced away on their motorcycles. The retailer, known for its luxury jewelry, was already robbed once in 2021. The suspects remain at large. Coming up next, drama brewing in Hollywood. Go figure. A writer's strike about to go into effect. If a deal can't be reached before midnight, what it could mean for your favorite shows. Next. Back now with the looming Writers Guild strike that could cause major disruptions to your favorite TV shows. The WGA and studios have until midnight to strike a deal. Miguel Almaguer has the latest on the tense negotiations.
Tonight's suspenseful Hollywood drama unfolding behind the scenes has come down to the wire, with just hours left for the Writers Guild of America to reach a deal with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, which represents studios. At odds over streaming residuals, higher pay, and consolidated jobs, the men and women who write for your favorite television shows and movies are set to walk off the job at midnight.
Nobody wants a strike, but they have to meet us. They have to meet. We're not asking for much. We're asking for just a livable wage and for our jobs to be protected and for us to make residuals on the content we're creating. If we don't stand up to these bullies, we're going to just keep getting bullied our whole lives and nothing's going to change.
If pencils go down and picket signs go up, we could see a sequel to the 2007-2008 strike that lasted 100 days, cost an estimated $3 billion, and abruptly cut into show production.
If a strike begins this week, the first thing that viewers at home will notice that their favorite late night shows will go into reruns. If there is a strike, the longer it goes, the more significant the impact, because nothing happens without a script.
A shutdown trickles down well beyond writers. Production, props, even craft service teams would be locked out. That's tens of thousands of jobs. With negotiations still underway, the studio reps say its priority is the long-term health and stability of the industry. Tonight, the clock is ticking on this real-life Hollywood cliffhanger. Industry insiders who were optimistic now say they're pessimistic a deal will be reached, and they fear if there is a strike, it could last for months. Gabe?
Miguel Almaguer, thank you. With only a few hours left to avert the first writer's strike in 15 years, what could this mean for the industry? Matt Bellany, he's a founding partner at Puck News and hosts the Town podcast. Matt, thanks so much for joining Top Story. So streaming has basically upended the way the industry works, and Miguel outlined the demands, but give us a little bit more context of how we got to now, just hours away from a possible strike.
Yeah, this has been a long time coming, and the writers have really been saying that the streaming revolution has left them behind. The entire economics of scripted content over the past 15 years has been completely upended by Netflix and the other streamers. But the way that writers are paid is still largely based on formulas from decades ago. So the writers are not just pushing for raises here. They want to fundamentally change how they are paid.
And Matt, a lot of white-collar workers are concerned about the impact of AI, but for writers' rooms specifically, you can imagine companies could view it as a way to cut costs down the road. So does it seem possible that this strike could actually lead to restrictions on AI?
Very much so. I mean, if you're a screenwriter and you look at what ChatGPT can do, that's terrifying, because sometimes the studios might want to just enhance what the writers do. Sometimes they might just want to see what the options are. And the writers are really pushing to make sure that professional, human-created content is what the studios must use, not ChatGPT or other AI-infused content.
And so, Matt, talk about the big picture impact of all this. As Miguel said, the last strike cost the industry billions, and a lot of shows were derailed. And reality TV gained a bigger footing. So what are some of the biggest effects we could see now if, and that's a big if this strike happens?
Well, I think immediately we're going to see the streaming services have an advantage here if the strike prevents a lot of the broadcast networks from debuting their fall series. People are just going to go to streaming because there's an endless supply of content there. And then I think long term, it's really going to hasten this shift to digital. People are going to go to TikTok. They're going to go to YouTube. They're going to go to other alternative places if they can't see the shows that they're used to seeing. And for traditional Hollywood, that is a big problem.
Matt, thank you. And when we come back, Noah's brave battle. This 8-year-old finding reason to dance despite a difficult medical battle, and the incredible moment, 800 days in the making. Stay with us. And finally tonight, we have the story of 8-year-old Noah, who has documented his incredible 800-day battle against leukemia on social media. Throughout grueling treatments, he's shown amazing strength and the ability to take on each day with a smile. Through all of the clinic and chemo visits, Noah Thompson has just kept dancing.
Fighting leukemia was the hardest thing I ever had to do in my life. It was painful and I was always sick. I love life so much, so I knew I had to fight hard.
Dancing is one of the ways this 8-year-old fought back against leukemia.
Hey guys, getting my chemo. This is what it looks like.
Noah sharing his cancer treatment journey online.
You know what it feels like to go with cancer? Your legs hurt when you walk. And you also have to take pills. Lots of them.
His mom, Gina, helping him film the videos, posting to the handle Noah's Heroes on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram.
So now I'm using having chemo, so I'm not scared or anything. I'm gonna beat this because I'm brave and I'm a warrior.
And finally, after nearly 800 days of treatments and hundreds of video updates from explaining the side effects of steroid treatment,
You might have some nausea, such as an insomnia, where you can't sleep.
to the celebrations of leaving the hospital,
Hey guys, I have some good news. I am going home.
all the while dancing his way to this moment. Noah taking a victory lap at Advent Health in Orlando.
Ringing that end of treatment bell was the best feeling I ever felt.
Now with a whole new reason to dance, hoping his moves can inspire others.
I just wanted to say, I hope my story helps everyone else with cancer fight it.
Noah really is a warrior. Thanks so much for watching Top Story. Good night.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.